So, we're here to talk about Community. It's very clear that we all love this show. Who wants to start us off?
The show was based on Dan Harmon's own experiences. He enrolled in a community college so that he could take Spanish with a girl that he really liked. And so the show opens with Jeff, played by
Joel McHale.
Joel McHale. He enrolls in the community college. He's taken by this girl, Britta, played by Gillian Jacobs. But as the show goes on, it sort of becomes about this whole community of characters.
It really started out as a very structured NBC comedy. They wanted it to adhere to these rules, and they wanted it to be about Jeff and Britta and not really about everybody else. But then I think Dan Harmon kind of realized everybody's really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, there's that one episode, the paintball episode, that pretty much changed everything.
Yep.
I believe it was called History of Modern Warfare.
Ah, you suck.
Come with me if you don't want paint on your clothes.
It took the general traditional sitcom arrangements of the characters and all of the tensions that we built up over the whole season, and it played them out in a hilarious paintball episode, which took over the whole campus and had this ridiculous sort of theme, war movie genre parody. And it really, people loved that episode so much that it set the tone for the rest of the show.
The word of the day probably for the show is change. Is that it does not, it's not afraid to change. It's not afraid to
Push boundaries.
Exactly, push boundaries. And it's not afraid to have two characters and have a certain thing and then not run that into the ground. They're gonna go on to more characters and have more connections. And a lot of shows don't do that. A lot of shows stick to one thing that works.
As we said before, we have Joel McHale as Jeff, the snarky douche.
Yeah.
What works so well about his character is that he's always a douche for the right reasons.
Yes,
he's
exactly.
Like a dick for good.
As much as he hates the group and is a douche to everybody in the group, he really loves it.
We're electing a student president. I want to run. I have so many ideas for improving the school.
Improving Greendale takes more than ideas, Annie. It takes time, gasoline, matches.
Nice.
Well, newsflash, Jeff. Some of us care about more than just fixing our hair and sculpting our abs.
Wow, you got me pegged.
Democracy, what a ruse. There's no such thing as a system in which the masses hold any genuine...
Everyone wants you to shut up.
And yet I won't. Case in point.
Let's talk about Britta then, Gillian Jacobs. She started out as a very one-note character. She was sort of the hot blonde that Jeff wanted to date and
That
arranged
didn't
the whole...
like Jeff.
Yeah, that didn't like Jeff. And as the show has gone on, she has become this
Hippie activist
that just everyone hates.
Well, they love to hate her, though.
They do. They do.
She
She's
loves to be in
belovedly
opposition
hated.
to
Yeah.
them. That's what's really funny is like, you know, if everybody is for one thing, she's automatically against it.
For her, everything is like a world issue of international
Yeah.
significance, and it's great to hate when that happens. But it's so great to see her character change, and I think this ties into that sort of it becoming a parody of itself, that initially Britta and Jeff are this, maybe they're a couple that are self-involved. Yeah, they want it together. And now
You don't want them
you
together.
make fun of the idea of them being together.
Right. They
And
make
it's
an
so great.
episode about making fun of the
Yeah.
idea of them being together. And that is why I freaking love this show, because it's so incredibly meta.
And I think that's one of the reasons that the show has struggled to pick up a broad mass following, is that it's not a show about life in a community college, or it's a show
Weird
about
niche genre
shows.
show. Yeah, about shows.
It's a show about
It's
shows.
like a pop culture show for pop culture lovers.
Let's go into the person I'm obsessed with on the show. My favorite person, Donald Glover. I first started seeing him on Derek Comedy, this little comedy troupe that he was on. What was great about these sketches is that even if he wasn't the main person in the sketch, you automatically knew that this guy was gonna be famous. He just had this like aura about him. And when I saw him on Community, I was like, yes!
I think our only choice is to try and shoot our way out.
Right. Commence Operation Troy's awesome leadership is never in doubt.
Abed, played by Danny Pudi, is the voice of the show in a way. Jeff might be the star, but he really has the sensibility of the show. He's very self-referential. He's always viewing the world as if it were.
Right. If this was a TV show, you know, this is what would happen when that happens.
Hey, Jeff, do you have any hillbilly cousins?
I wish. Why?
What about a wealthy uncle?
Or an old drinking buddy that may or may not have had a sex change.
Abed, why are you mining my life for classic sitcom scenarios?
I guess I'm just excited about the new year, looking for ways to improve things. I'm hoping we can move away from the soapy relationship-y stuff and into bigger, fast-paced, self-contained escapades.
There's been a little conflict in the show, mostly between Dan Harmon and Chevy Chase. Dan Harmon publicly played a voicemail that Chevy Chase had left him where he berated the show and said the writing was horrible and that he's not allowed to do what he wants to do. Dan Harmon had a reputation of being a really hard showrunner. He wants to run the show in a way where every day, 5 or 6 times, he says it has to be this way or I quit. And it just got to a point where they couldn't work together anymore, and Dan Harmon was fired.
And I get that, but you know, there's something to be said about all of that perseverance and all of that sort of crazy hard work. It's a great friggin' show.
My defining moment for the series actually comes in the very last episode of this previous season.
Nice.
And it has to do with Evil Abed. It's a very brief moment because Evil Abed has taken over, and basically his mission is to turn what we would think is his life or the show,
the main
timeline, dark. So what he does is he has to cut off Jeff Winger's arm.
Evil Abed, what are you doing? I'm going to cut off Jeff Winger's arm. I won't let you, that's horrible. Don't you mean dark? Welcome to my world. Psst, Jeff! Winger!
And that was the moment I was just like, yes,
It just shows
I love
how-
this show.
My defining moment of the show comes from this last season's Christmas episode, which was not the claymation one, but one which I thought was so bizarre, which is that it is a Christmas episode that's a parody of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes. Right.
And it essentially has people becoming infected with Christmas cheer. And when they do that, they join Glee Club and begin to sing.
See, I didn't even think, wow, that's weird that you thought about it like that. I just thought of it as a spoof of Glee.
Abed has become infected with Christmas Glee, and Troy suspects it, but as a Jehovah's Witness, is against Christmas.
Going deep, cover past enemy lines, making everybody think I'm on the Christmas side. Rocking warm sweaters, hanging big ass lights. If the fat man can see me, yo, it's gotta look right. I watch all the TV specials that I never could. I'll even cry during the sad ones like James Bond would. And when the big night comes, it's time to set the bait. Cold milk, hot cookies, decorate a plate. And he'll come down the chimney and they will be just him and me, but he won't know we're enemies cause the plate's sincere. Bring a trap like that, hug on tight, get on his lap and tell him he can come back every year. Cause I am Jehovah's most secret witness, so I might have to dedicate my life to Christmas and act just like I love it till the day I die.
My favorite moment was an episode from season 2 called Paradigms of Human Memory, where they essentially find a bunch of stuff that reminds them of events that happened in the past, but they were events that we had never seen. Yet somehow they're all very stereotypically events that would happen to this group, and so when you see each one, you're laughing hilariously because it's totally plausible.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling. I was just heading to judge our belated carnival when I heard you guys having a tiff. What's the rumpus?
We were debating how many times per year a man can drop in a study room in a dumb costume with irrelevant news.
Ding! Ow! It's Feline AIDS Awareness Day, folks, so let's whip it in the keister. Ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding. Guys, Greendale's music department is flat baroque. So we are having a fundraiser. What's Dean got to do with it? Why, it's time to Tina Turner the clocks ahead. Happy daylight savings.
And it's just like the epitome of Dean.
It's a great self-referential clip show about clips we've never seen.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Community, one of the most meta / self-referential shows you'll ever see. It's a show about shows, and it's hilarious. See it.
I don't think I've ever seen a show that breaks this many boundaries on broadcast television ever in my life, my 23 years of existence. So I say see it.
It's so wacky, you never know what to expect. It's like a live-action cartoon. See it.
Cheers!
Cheers! 6 seasons and a movie.
6 seasons and a movie.
I sure hope so.
Greg, Salim, and Aaron in the morning.